see yourself in there?
I should be able to, yeah. Do you want to start by just saying your name?
Yeah. Hi, I'm very happy to be here with Hannah, who's interviewing me. My name is Asmita Jain, and I'm happy to be interviewed today about my culture and by the place I belong to.
All right, so first question, where in India did you grow up?
Hannah, I am from the central part of India, in the state of Madhya Pradesh, in a city called Indore, and that's supposed to be the cleanest city in India. Yeah, and it's known for its food and rich culture in terms of its history.
So what was your favorite childhood memory growing up in that city?
My most favorite childhood memory has been having a great fun family time with my sister, my parents, my cousins, extended family, having a great memory line when I go and I think having a great festivity every time we have Diwali festival or Holi festival, eating all those traditional sweets and cuisines made at home, which my mom used to cook, and just having that big, it's like a very vibrant feeling to be in India and to celebrate those festivals, trust me.
So have you ever participated in Indian classical singing or dancing?
Oh, that's a great question. I have grown up, my father and my parents have raised us as kids consciously who are aware of the aesthetics of life, good music, good world cinema, good literature, and that has given me an opportunity to learn Indian classical music when I was very young. And I pursued it not as a career, I was an amateur singer, but yes, singing Indian classical, semi-classical and Sufi music, ghazals, etc. has been my favorite hobby and passion, I would say that.
Were you able to sing through like school? You had mentioned competitions earlier.
Oh yes, so there is a state level competition called Lata Mangeshkar competition, which is after name of a very renowned late Indian singer. She was a Nightingale of India, and and she was born in my city. So I happened to win that award when I was 16, and I had an opportunity to participate in a television contest called Antakshari and enter the semi-finals of the event. That was a national craze at the time. So I don't want to go back into those memories. So going back to those nostalgic times, I would just say that it's been years that I could again pursue it, but yes, the love for music still stays.
What are the core principles of Hinduism?
Speaking of the primary religions that India has given to the world, so the concept of Hinduism, basically, if you date it back, it all started about 5,000 years before Christ when the Indus Valley civilization was introduced. So the Aryans or the Aryan culture, the Vedic, time, the era, it was a genesis for Hinduism and many other religions that followed. So the very existence of Hinduism doesn't date back to a particular time because it is believed that it was even beyond and before the Indus Valley civilization.
Sure.
And it's a very rich set of philosophy and a set of belief, religious belief, which is very diverse and very flexible in its core foundations. It believes in virtues and it believes in the cycle of karma. It also has a dimension of doing good and getting good, and the victory of good over evil.
Yeah.
Also, Hinduism talks about non-violence. It talks about peace. It talks about worshipping the elements of nature. It talks about finding hope in everything you do, not just for yourself, but it looks at the whole world as one united family. And there is a Sanskrit saying called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which literally means the world is a one unified whole family. So the Hindu culture over the years, yeah, it is. And Hannah, the Hindu culture has been like flowing water. So whosoever came into the Indian subcontinent land as conquerors, as plunderers, as people of different faiths, Hinduism imbibed and embraced very gracefully all of those philosophies and it paved way for a mixed culture, yet another culture. Okay, so like Islam developed much later. So along with Hinduism, I would connect that Hinduism gave birth to many subsects or sub-religions and cultures, like Jainism and Buddhism grew up around 500 BC kind of era.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, so that's also very old, and I personally was born in a Jain family, which is a contemporary of the Buddha. So it's a subsect of Hinduism. So there is no limit. If I go talking about Hinduism, it is phenomenally vivid and very deep and very, very wide to embrace every culture in it. But if you speak of the core principles, it believes in truth, non-violence. It believes in everybody united, still diverse. It believes in the karma philosophy of birth and rebirth cycle, that every living being just transforms the body and the soul remains. And then there is no, there is no rebirth cycle without moksha. So moksha is the ultimate salvation stage, which in Hinduism is like achieving your best by cutting the cycle of rebirth.
Yeah, it's also called enlightenment too, right?
Yes, and there are various terms for it. It's called moksha, it's called nirvana in Hinduism and Buddhism. So moksha is the state of ultimate, penultimate enlightenment, or the relief or release from the cycle of rebirth.
Very cool. If you care to disclose, do you practice Hinduism?
Yes, I am a practicing Jain, which is a subcaste or a subsect of Hinduism, which is from Jainism of Lord Mahavira. And but I do believe in the core principles of the central Hinduism, but not the stringent parts. So I am more of a progressive mindset, where there is equity and there is diversity going hand in hand, and live and let live is the principle of Jainism. So I'm a vegetarian by birth, a super vegetarian, and about 100 of my previous generations in my family, if you go 100 generations back in my parents' family, my father and my mother, none of us have ever tasted, eaten, or touched any meat or any animal product, because we believe in non-violence and not hurting other living beings. That's unique.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you vegan then too? Like,
I'm trying to turn into a vegan, but I love dairy. So in living in Wisconsin, it's not something which I can do. I love cheese.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I am a vegetarian, and yeah, so that's my practice. During the Vedic period, when the Aryans came in, the society was divided into various classes based on the kind of occupation they did. For example, the priests and the intellectuals, they were headed up there, and they were the Brahmins.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was another section of the society, which was like the kings and the warriors and the gallantries, the knights. They were the Kshatriyas. Okay, most of our gods are from the Kshatriyas family, like Lord Ram and Lord Krishna and Vishnu. They were all from Kshatriya families.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the third section was the business class or the service class, who were the traders, the businessmen, the people who would do transactions,
Yeah.
who would grow things and who would produce things or who would provide services.
Yeah.
They were the business class. So many of the Jains are from the business class. So that was a business class, and they called it the Brahmins were on the top, then the Kshatriyas, and these were the Vaishyas. So there are different names for it, but we can call them Baniya or Vaishyas, okay? And the fourth category in the hierarchy of this social, denomination,
Mm-hmm.
it was the Shudras. Now they needed somebody to act on the measly jobs, to do the small jobs for us, like how we say, okay, we have these farmers who would work in the fields, or these people who would serve us as servants, or people who would be, doing all the labor jobs, the physical jobs.
Yeah.
So they were categorized into Shudras. Later, the society was, again, there was a diminishing phase when the Shudras were converted into two classes. One were the Shudras who converted into upper classes, they changed their religion, or the ones that were turned untouchables because they really were looked down upon, and they were barriers for them to enter into common spaces. How the skin and the color or the race based discrimination was done in Africa, similar to that.
Okay, that makes sense. So it was about the shade.
It was not about the color. It was
Okay.
about the caste. So it was a sectorial caste-based division. It originally was only occupation-based, but over the years and centuries, it declined into a very not so welcoming part where the society saw its downside, and it was divided based on caste, not based on their occupation.
Okay.
So the discrimination was strict and severe. They would not marry in between castes and subcastes. They would not exchange foods and festivities. So that was the darker side of the culture that was seen. Okay.
Oh,
Hello.
we're still here. So how would you explain Jainism to someone who knows nothing about it?
Okay. So Jainism, I would say, it's a very unique practice. Buddhism and Jainism were contemporary religions because Buddha, that is Siddhartha, this was the name of King Siddhartha, and he renunciated the worldly pleasures and he went on the path of meditation and salvation, and he established the religion of Buddhism through his principles. At the same time, parallel to him were the followers of Lord Mahavira, who was the pioneer for establishing Jainism. And they both were contemporary in terms of the chronology, the same time zone, and the language that was used to write the scriptures was the ancient language of Pali and Prakrit. And even now, centuries old idols, temples, artifacts, architectural remains are there. I have myself seen multiple times. I have visited those temples, whether it's Ranakpur or whether it's Dilwara Jain temples. You can Google up and see. Dilwara Jain temples are one of the most magnificent examples of Jain architecture in the world, and they are UNESCO heritage site as well. So that kind of advanced culture was there. And Jainism, very briefly I would say, is based on the principles, again, very strongly non-violence, ahimsa, and also live and let live. So it's a belief and practice where there is no formal offering or puja or any rituals in my religion, but we only pray to God based on the hymns of the sect, and we wish well for the entire humanity, and we do not try to commit anything that is violent in terms of our words, actions, or even thoughts. So that's the philosophy of Jainism, and that's why I really believe in the uniqueness of it. But this religion was limited to the Indian subcontinent. But Buddhism, because Buddha and his followers traveled around the world, it was widespread in East Asia. It went to China, to Japan, to Africa, to even the US, and the Europeans also follow Buddhism in a great way. It even went down to Sri Lanka, if you look at India. So Buddhism started here, was where Buddhism was established in the lower areas of Nepal, and then it traveled all the way down south to Sri Lanka. Near Kandy is a place in Sri Lanka where it is said that Buddha has his tooth preserved. And then when you go upwards to China, Buddhism spread here to Mongolia, Gobi Desert, and also up to Japan over here. It had a great, it left lots of marks in the East South Asian area of Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Yes, there are many followers in Thailand as well. I have seen I've been to Indonesia, so even in Indonesia, in Bali and Jakarta, there have been temples which have Hinduism and Buddhism as the prime, religious beliefs. And then it was spreading again to African states. Then when Islam entered India through Afghanistan, Iran, and this area, Islam entered here. Then Islam spread in India, and the Hindu culture also combined, and it also welcomed that kind of Islamic, air to blend with its own breeze, and there was a unified culture. So Islam was still followed, like it is still followed in India. There are many Muslims in India, and they coexist peacefully. Sometimes there are disruptions, but they do exist peacefully.
What is the most important part of Jainism to you personally?
Mm-hmm. I love to think the most important part of Jainism is aparigraha. Aparigraha in Sanskrit means detachment. It talks about, like I spoke about ahimsa and I spoke about let live and let live. These two are definitely what, they really hold me gripped together to my religion. But aparigraha, I would like to explain this phrase. It means to be associated with other living beings and with materialistic things of life, but with a sense of detachment. If you have something in possession right now, you do not belong to that thing, and neither does that thing belong to you. With the feeling of moving on and not being attached to something and making it the sole purpose of your life is that feeling. So when you lead your entire life cycle, Jainism talks about when this body is released and you change your body and the soul changes, then actually you never came in the world bringing anything and you go empty-handed as well.
Yeah.
So nothing is yours. Every element of this universe is created by the God. It's not yours. So you should not have that possessiveness or that materialism in you.
Yeah.
And that's why the Jain sense, the saints who follow, the priests who follow Jainism, they have left all the worldly pleasures. They only eat once a day. Okay, they sometimes also skip water, and that's like for hundreds of days. They sometimes only have water and do not have anything but a morsel or a small bowl of food once a day. And that too is offered with lots of restrictions. They do not wear clothes on their bodies, bare minimum abode. They do not sleep on a bedding. They only sleep either on hay bed or on the floor. They do not have any property to their names. They do not possess anything. They don't have a home. They don't have children. They don't marry anybody. They only talk and preach and propagate the goodness of the religion to the people. They try to spread the virtues of humanity across, and their purpose in life is not to take away something, because they believe they couldn't bring anything, so they cannot take away with them. So they believe in aparigraha to the core. Yeah, that's really deep and interesting.
Alright, that just makes me think about how dependent I am on my phone,
Oh,
and
yeah.
how that is such a huge part of
Yeah.
our culture. And
Absolutely. It's like, I would say the Western culture, and even when I say West, I would include, I would not just talk about America, I would also
Right.
include the European culture. Rather, I would say the recently developed cultures, which have a unified language, which is more influenced by the language of technology and development, but doesn't have the roots missing. Like they really miss the roots in them. Otherwise, there are many positives of the Western culture that I have seen. That is the progressiveness, the inclusiveness, the openness, the freedom of expression, which is lacking in the present world India. Because I would not hesitate to say that over the period of time, the political, economic, and social influences have, eroded the core essence of the religion. And the way it was established is not anymore the way it is. Okay, so I hope and I wish that someday it will be the golden era, but no. So we have the Vedas, we gave the world yoga, we gave the world Ayurveda, we gave the world zero in mathematics.
Yeah.
So even the Aryabhat who gave zero to math, without which nothing is possible. And he gave pi, pi.
Yeah.
So without pi calculations, so they knew all the celestial calculations so many centuries ago. So with all that knowledge that transferred, it could have made miracles in the Western and Eastern world together, but it somewhere down the line got eroded of its purpose. So the cell phone culture or anything, there should be a little more, I would say, calmness and peace brought into our lives here in the Western world. If we can combine the merits of what we have, like we have the diversity, we have the freedom, we have opportunities to fulfill our dreams and to be our best version. But at the same time, we lack the calmness and the tolerance with other human beings.
Yeah.
to be more patient, to be more tolerant and accepting. That's what we are missing. That's it.
Just to wrap things up, I thought I would include just a couple of student questions. This is kind of a sillier question,
Okay.
but someone asked, do you have cops in India?
Of course, we have very tough and very rough cops in India, of course. Yeah.
And then another interesting question from a
Okay,
student.
I would just add there.
Oh, sorry.
So India has one of the greatest defense budgets in the world. It has, it's a superpower in terms of defense. It has atomic power, and it has given the world lots of satellites and lots of space research going on for the past 2 centuries. So yes, India is there.
India has cops.
Yes, it does. In various uniforms.
How is school different in India than the school you see here?
Oh, that's such an it's a question which cannot be answered in few words. But yes, it's the progressive India, and its education reaches to the bottom of the society, and it reaches in many ways with a huge population like current. I am an American permanent resident, but I have seen the good and bad sides of both worlds, and I would say that the hunger and the hunger to learn both exist. So hunger for food exists, but also the hunger to learn exists, and that makes Indian classrooms very special, because the level of curiosity that we see around the students there for science, technology, mathematics, and language is amazing. It's unmatchable. And that's why many of the Indian CEOs, they are ruling Google, they are ruling so many companies, Sundar Pichai is here. And we have all the big names in technology that are ruling the world. And I read somewhere that more than 39 universities in America have deans of Indian origin. So yes, so the Indian community has the brain power that is spreading around the world.
And that's one of the things in our textbook that we read, that it mentioned that education is one of the core values.
Oh yes, education is like a must. Like you will not see anybody who's not graduated. Like getting a graduation degree is not something they are too proud of. They would like to have a PhD ultimately, or to become a doctor, or to be a scientist, or to do whatever they can best, because there's so much competition. That's also a factor.
I believe it. And then I thought this was an interesting question too. I had a student wonder, what language do you speak most at home? Do you speak Hindi? Do you speak English? A little bit of both?
Talking about me?
Yeah.
So I have grown up speaking both languages, Hindi and English, but many of the Indians, because there's so much of diversity in the different states, have different languages, food, and habits, that we come across friends and families of different cultures in our own state and community. So I'm able to speak 5 different dialects in India. I understand and can speak, Urdu and Marathi and Gujarati, and know a little bit of Bangla and Punjabi, and I'm sure many Indians do. They know Dravidian languages, So multilingual and multicultural is what I would say we are.
Are you teaching your daughter the different dialects then too?
She understands that. She has grown up, she did her high school from the US, but until 11th grade she was in India, Indore. So she was in a great private school. So yes, she also can understand and value the different languages and the cultures. Yes.
Very cool. All right, well, is there anything else that you want to add?
I would just say that working and living in America in the school district gives me a great exposure of knowing the Western way and how the students' mindsets are different across different areas of the world. But I can also see striking similarities between kids and communities. It's all the same what the students want here, whether it's a middle schooler or whether it's a high schooler. Everybody strives on the hope to learn and to be successful in the community and to be able to make their parents proud. And that's the core thing that I see. That's the similarity between whether it's a student in Mumbai studying in a school or it's a Green Bayer in Washington Middle School.
All right, well, thank you again for doing this.
Thank you, Hannah, for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be part of this team and to be contributing my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.